The last decade has arguably been one of the best in NBA history, and we have seen a dynasty with the Warriors the last part of LeBron's prime, and over the latter half of this decade, more teams making a run at a title, and cementing their legacies as greats, or even more, like LeBron, Curry, Giannis, and Jokic. But who were the best teams of the last 10 years, and how good can you be if you never won a title or even made the finals? The 2022 Celtics sneak into the list at 20. They made it to the finals, even getting a 2-1 series lead, and led Golden State in Game 4 before Curry took over, and Boston had no hope, but this was a very good team. After a slow start, they closed the season on a 33-10 streak before sweeping KD and Kyrie in the first round. The Celtics fought through adversity, coming back from down 3-2 to beat Giannis, who was the best in the world, with 46 from Tatum in Game 6 and 7 threes from Grant Williams in Game 7 and 1-7 against the Heat, narrowly holding on to a late lead. It took a Tatum injury and Curry masterclass for this team to barely lose in 6 in the finals. They were elite inside as Robert Williams remained relatively healthy throughout the year, and Marcus Smart won DPOY, leading to the league's best defensive rating and second best net rating, but even crazier had a plus 12.7 net rating post All-Star break. Nobody was within 5. At 19 is the champion of the previous year, the 2022 Warriors. This roster was not special compared to others on this list, but everyone stepped up and played their role when it mattered most. Andrew Wiggins was a two-way demon, usually guarding the best perimeter or overall player on the opposing team, most notably containing Luka in the conference finals, including a poster dunk and clamping an injured Tatum in the finals. Klay averaged 19 points and shot 39% from 3 in the playoffs, albeit with worse defense, but Draymond recovered from an injury earlier that year to lead a solid playoff defense. Jordan Poole also stepped up in the best year of his career to help Golden State when Curry was out, and as a spark plug that could ignite the offense. And of course, Steph Curry, completely taking over in the latter half of the finals, with a 43-point implosion in Game 4 to save Golden State, and 34, 7, and 7 with 6 threes in Game 6. The defense was filled with role players that fit seamlessly, and though they are the lowest ranked champion on the list due to the lack of star power, not an exceptional regular season, and critiqued playoff path, this team will not be forgotten and was a great finals championship run for the dynasty. The 2015 Cavaliers slot in at 18. This was the first iteration of the LeBron, Kyrie, Love Cavs, but it didn't finish off that way as Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love got injured before the end of the finals, ruining any chance Cleveland had at winning. In the second half of the season, they got way better, trading for J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert, and Timothy Mozgov, and LeBron was LeBron. The team kept fighting through countless injuries, and they only lost 2 games through their first 3 rounds, sweeping the 60-win Hawks without Love. This team could knock down threes at a very good rate for the time, but there isn't much to say about them as we will go through the 2 better versions of these Cavaliers later in the rankings. The first version of this team to appear on the list is the 2017 Spurs, who ranked 17th. If there was one team in the West that could compete with Golden State that year, it was the Spurs, who won 61 games. Unfortunately, that was 6 games behind the first seed, but their defense was insane, allowing just 98.1 points a game, which was second in the league. Only one other team was below 102. Kawhi Leonard arguably had the best regular season of his career, finishing 3rd in MVP voting with 9 first-place votes, and made the All-NBA first team and All-Defensive first team, while also finishing 3rd in DPOY voting. By the way, Robert Covington finished 4th in voting that year, which is kind of crazy. But it does suck that Kawhi got injured in Game 1 of the conference finals against the Warriors, as San Antonio had no chance without him and were eventually swept, and it derailed Kawhi's tenure with the Spurs, playing just 9 more games in the silver, black, and white. The 2021 champion Milwaukee Bucks land at 16th, and this is probably too low. Giannis had a superhuman effort with multiple clutch moments in the finals that we still remember today, including his 50 points in a closeout Game 6 where he shut the doubters up and actually made his free throws. And yeah, this was right after his leg got bent backwards. Kawhi Leonard was a perfect Robin, scoring 32 in Game 6 of the conference finals with Giannis out to advance to the NBA Finals, and this team's defense was crazy with Giannis, Drew, Brook Lopez, and Bobby Portis, resulting in a 106.8 defensive rating in the playoffs, which ranked 1st. They had to go through tons of adversity, with an extremely tough second round against the Nets, conference finals where they missed Giannis for part of it, and came back from 2-0 in the finals against the Suns, but had also gone through plenty of adversity and playoff failures before, like getting shocked by the Heat in 2020 and losing a 2-0 lead in the conference finals in 2019, with Giannis continually being labeled a choker. But this title shut all of them up. The 2019 Raptors ranked 15th, and it is a travesty that we only got to see this team for 1 season. In the 2018 offseason, Toronto couldn't make it past LeBron. Well, 2 big things happened. LeBron left to the West, and Toronto traded franchise legend DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard, an injury-prone superstar that played 9 games last season and was most likely leaving after this year. It was now or never for Toronto, and they executed. A historically great playoff run by Kawhi, with him averaging 30.5 points and 9.1 rebounds, with all-world defense, becoming the second player to ever win the finals while averaging 39 and 1.5 steals a game. The first, 2012 LeBron. The role players were also perfect for this team. Kyle Lowry had been a gritty point guard for years, but thrived in this role next to Kawhi. But the G League had done its job, developing guys like Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet, two players who ranked top 6 in playoff minutes on this team and still have huge roles in the league today. Though they did get a bit of luck with the Warriors dealing with injuries to KD, Clay, and a banged-up Boogie, this team, franchise, and fans deserve the title. The 2016 Spurs land at 14th, the second version of the Spurs team to make the list, but what a season 2016 was, as you will see 3 more teams from that year on this list. But San Antonio won 67 games that season. Yes, 67 games. Just one team has reached that mark since that season, the 2017 Warriors. Just 13 individual seasons have ever reached that mark ever, and it is the only time in this illustrious Spurs history that they have. Unfortunately, they are also one of the 2 teams to not make the conference finals on this list. San Antonio lost to the Thunder in the second round, but that isn't to take away from how good this team was. They led the NBA in the defensive rating at 98.2. No other team had below 100. Even in the playoffs, despite losing early, they still led in defensive rating. Kawhi was one of the best players in the league, and LaMarcus Aldridge worked great as a second. This team still had plenty of veteran pieces from the dynasty, like Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. By the way, this team went 40-1 at home and led the league in net rating, even with the 73-win Warriors. There is no doubt in my mind that if the Spurs team was in today's game, they would have a real shot at winning the West or potentially even the title, and it really doesn't feel right that this team is 14th. They probably should be higher. The 2015 Warriors land at 13, the earliest version of this elite dynasty. Steph Curry had made the jump that year, averaging 23.8 points and 7.7 assists on his way to his first MVP and breaking the three-point record, still the second highest mark to this day. Nobody could stop this revolutionary offense that relied on the 3-ball, also with elite shooter Klay Thompson. They won 67 games and lost just 5 games in the playoffs, but I won't speak too much on them, as we do have 4 other Warriors squads to get to. But why were they not ranked higher? Well, this offense was elite, nobody could stop it, but it was also because it was one of the first to be based off the 3-ball and thrive. Teams didn't know how to stop it at the time, while nowadays they have better knowledge. They also got helped by plenty of injuries in the playoffs, but I promise Warriors fans, you will like the rest of this list. The 2016 Thunder are ranked 12th, and this team was insane. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook both healthy and at the peak of their powers, and both finishing top 5 in MVP voting, but it was just them, as Serge Ibaka, Steven Adams, Enes Freedom, Andre Roberson, and Dion Waiters were all key pieces to this elite team. And it truly is a travesty that they didn't win a title. They had the second best offensive rating, nearly 2 points above the Cavaliers while only trailing the Warriors, and were also ranked 3rd in net rating behind San Antonio and Golden State. They were also one of just 2 teams to average north of 107 points per game at 110.2 and shot 47.6% from the field, which was 3rd. They led the 73-win Warriors 3-1. I don't think you understand how crazy that is. They led the 73-win Warriors 3-1. This wasn't LeBron. They were actually beating them. They were 1 game away, but we all know what happened. One of the greatest chokes of all time. The 2023 Nuggets are ranked 11th, and this team will most likely be the best version of the Jokic era, or at least in the near future, but a lot of that is because of Jokic. The Serbian center had an all-time great playoff run and was nearly unstoppable, but the supporting cast helped him so much. KCP and Bruce Brown, who have since left, were perfect role players who did dirty work, while Jamal Murray was a textbook Robin that could make big shots in the clutch. MPJ is a great three-point shooter and POA defender, and Aaron Gordon worked great in his role. The Nuggets didn't have the toughest path, which does hurt their rankings, but they easily took care of the Heat in the finals and swept the Lakers in the conference finals. It truly feels like they should have been higher, and they have a case to be one of the best teams in the 2020s. The 2021 Nets are the 10th best team in the last decade. Yes, they didn't even make the finals. Yes, we barely ever saw them at their peak. Yes, they are the highest ranked team to not even make the conference finals and one of just 5 teams to not make the finals on this list. But this team was good, historically good. All of their stars were playing close to peak level. Yes, even KD was going ballistic. A team with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving playing on an all-NBA rate is going to be unstoppable offensively, and it was, especially with Kyrie and Durant having experience thriving in a non-clear-cut 1A role. While Harden's playmaking was insane, averaging 10.9 assists after getting traded to Brooklyn. Harden was traded on January 14th. The Nets finished the season 41-18 after that date, the best record in the East. It took a Kyrie ankle injury, Harden hamstring injury, and KD's foot being a centimeter too long for the Nets to lose by the slimmest of margins in overtime in Game 7 against the eventual champions. This team deserved the title, probably should have been ranked higher, and will go down as one of the biggest what-ifs in recent memory. The 2019 Warriors ranked 9th, another team that, if not for the lack of health, most likely would have won a championship. Off pure star power and name brand alone, this was arguably the best team on this list, adding DeMarcus Cousins to Steph, KD, Klay, and Draymond. But Boogie played just 30 games. The chemistry was shaky at best, most notably the Durant-Draymond feud that showed the start of the end. This team's supporting cast was much worse than previous seasons, and making the finals for 5 straight years led to players getting fatigued as they just didn't have time to rest. It was a very good team and most likely the best in the league that season, even beating the Rockets in 6 in the second round and coming back countless times against Portland in the conference finals, but injuries prevented the three-peat. The 2020 Los Angeles Lakers ranked 8th as one of the best teams of the 2020s. If you want a full video on this team, check out the video after this one. But this team is criminally underrated. LeBron was still arguably the best in the league and was the last full season of peak Bron, Solomon Hill. You will not be forgiven. And Anthony Davis playing at an elite level while this team escaped injuries. They all fit so well, everyone accepting their roles as the amount of vets on this team wasn't a bad thing and helped them be one of the most trustworthy teams ever, going 57-0 when leading after the third quarter. Bubble or not, this team would have won the championship, but in the playoffs they dominated despite not having Avery Bradley losing just 5 games and never having a significant worry about losing a series. The top 7 is really substantially better than the rest, but at 7 is a hot take, the 2016 Cavaliers. They did complete the greatest finals comeback, down 3-1 against the Warriors. We all know the deal. LeBron blocked, Kyrie shot, Cleveland first championship, and of course that duo went nuclear in the last 3 games. And this was a team that will forever be remembered in NBA history, but this was a team that struggled at times, finishing the season inconsistently and beat up on a weak Eastern Conference. Kevin Love underperformed heavily, but I cannot lie and say this team wasn't a genuinely great team. Just compared to the rest of the list is not as good. 6th is the 2017 Cavaliers. Yes, the 2017 Cavs who lost in the finals were a better team than the infamous 2016 Cavs who won the championship. In 2017, they did only win 51 games and get the 2nd seed, losing out to the Isaiah Thomas Celtics. That did not matter. LeBron and Kyrie played at the same or a better level, with Irving recovering from an injury-riddled 2016 year and both outperforming their 2016 stats. But the main story was Kevin Love, who had by far the best season with Cleveland yet, making an all-star team for the first time since 2014 in Minnesota. The bench also got much better, adding guys like Kyle Korver and Deron Williams, and when it mattered in the playoffs, this team was nuts, losing just 1 game on their way to the finals, a 3-point defeat that took an Avery Bradley buzzer beater. Their offense could not be stopped, and LeBron was doing LeBron things, but unfortunately they ran into the 2017 Warriors, who you will see later on this list, but we're still the only team to beat Golden State in that playoffs. The 2024 Celtics sit 5th. Yes, that may seem like recency bias, but I promise you it isn't. The top 6 of this team was one of the best we have ever seen. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White, and Al Horford. What makes them so special though? Well, multiple things. Adding KP to Horford in the front court gave Boston the opportunity to have both bigs be able to shoot, and even when one is off, the other is on. For 48 minutes of a basketball game, both their bigs are weapons from deep offensively, which is much more important than most realize. Porzingis is also fast enough to defend on the perimeter, something that the Celtics lacked in 2022 and it hurt heavily against Curry. But yes, Boston was that good that even without KP for most of the playoffs, they were fine. But why else? This team was one of, if not the greatest 3-point shooting team ever. They made 16.5 threes per game. Second place made less than 15. The gap from first to second was as large as the gap from second to third. They shot 38.8% from deep, just 0.1 behind OKC, who was first, who took 8 less threes. Having so many lengthy defenders also helped a lot. Even if Jaylen Brown isn't on the floor, Drew is strong enough to defend bigger guys. What if that's not working? Well, we have Jason Tatum. Even off the bench, they surrounded a team based on shooting with even more shooting. You could not stop them. This was nearly a perfectly constructed team. And even though JT isn't a LeBron or a Steph, it didn't really matter as long as he played his role. The 2016 Warriors sit 4th. Yes, they won 73 games, breaking the all-time record previously set by the Bulls, and had one of the most memorable playoff runs ever. The 2015 Warriors did win the championship with a historic season, but Golden State announced they were the next dynasty this year, as Steph Curry became the first ever player to win a unanimous MVP. They had the best offensive rating in the league, as nobody was that close, and still had an elite defense led by Draymond, who would finish 2nd in DPOY high voting that season. Klay would have another elite year, and the role players were great, but nobody knew how to stop this team. Golden State started the season 24-0. Yes, they won 24 games to start the season. Then after their first loss, rattled off 12 wins in 13 games to start with a 36-2 record. San Antonio infamously went 40-1 at home. Their one loss, you guessed it, their second last home game of the season too. They shot more threes than anyone and made them at such a higher rate than any other team that we may never see number one this high again. The Warriors made 41.6% of their threes. Yeah, the entire team did. Second place was 37.5%. The gap from first to second was larger than the gap from second to 28th. They still shot at a 39.3% rate in the playoffs despite many ups and downs, coming back from a 3-1 deficit to the Thunder in the conference finals, but with Steph injured, Cleveland would come back from down 3-1 in the NBA Finals. The 2018 Rockets sneak into the top 3. Pairing two of the best offensive engines in the 2010s was viewed as a bad idea by some. They were proven wrong. The combination of James Harden and Chris Paul worked to perfection, both being able to generate great looks for teammates, and if needed, they can just decide to get a bucket. There isn't much to say on Harden individually as one of the greatest offensive engines ever. We know how good he was and his elite ability to bend the rules to his favor, while Chris Paul struggled to stay healthy but still averaged 19 and 8. The rest of his team fit perfectly around Harden and Paul too, proving yet again just how important roster construction is, with nearly every rotational player being at least a solid shooter, except for big men Clint Capella and Nene. They won 65 games, a franchise record, and were the 1 seed over Golden State, but maybe even crazier was their 3-point shooting stats. They shot at an average rate, ranking 14th, but took 6.5 more threes than any other team and made 2.6 more than anyone else. The gap from first to second in threes was bigger than the gap from second to ninth, and in the playoffs this remained the same way, making 2.2 threes per game more than second place. This team was built similarly to those Warriors teams, depending on the three ball but to an extreme extent, and it led them and the Warriors running through the first 2 rounds, both winning both series 4-1, and in that conference finals we know what happened. Much needed wins in game 2 and 4 to keep the series alive, and what seemed to be one of the best games in franchise history in game 5 with a series leading win. But Chris Paul injured his hamstring and would be out for the remainder of the series. Houston would fall apart in the second half of Game 6, scoring just 25 points despite taking a 39-22 lead by the end of the first 12 minutes, and in Game 7, despite leading early again, the Rockets would miss 27 straight threes. Historically bad 3-point shooting variance, they would barely lose. This team would have won the championship had Chris Paul not got injured, or the refs not have blatantly been biased in Game 7, where they didn't miss 27 straight threes, and they were the only team to really compete with Golden State through their 2 world-breaking years. But everything went wrong at the end. The 2018 Warriors finished second. They beat the Rockets in the conference finals, but there is a discussion to be had on what the better team was. Fully healthy, the Rockets outperformed Golden State, but when it mattered most, the Warriors turned up, like Game 6 and Game 7 in the second half, with their classic offensive bursts. Houston was also built to beat the Warriors, similarly to how this Timberwolves team and the Nuggets are. Denver was probably better, but Minnesota was built to defeat Denver and had a big stretch in Game 7 to help win. The 2018 supporting cast probably wasn't as good as 2017, but KD and the rest of the team had great chemistry for a complete season, and when they made it to the finals, they swept LeBron and co, but let's not waste any more time before we get to the 1 spot. The 2017 Warriors are the best team of the last decade and of all time. All-NBA Steph Curry, All-NBA Kevin Durant, All-NBA Draymond Green, and All-Star Klay Thompson. They sleepwalked their way to 67 wins despite not fully meshing up until late December. They tied the 1987 Lakers with the highest offensive rating in a season up to that point, and when the playoffs started, had one of the best defenses in the league. This team was unfair and rolled through the playoffs, losing just 1 game on their way to the second title in 3 years. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much. If you don't mind subscribing and liking the video, it would help a ton.